talk about a couple things I have going on. Getting some movement with the dealership as well as the equity raise. Taking some time to come to fruition, but patience is always key in these endeavors. Obviously excited to get going with the dealership and getting that running and built out, as well as the equity raise. Automotive, I spent 12 years in automotive, so I'm very familiar with that process and building that up. Uh, I've never built a dealership of my own, but I've built up many dealerships for a large auto group, and done it very successfully on a very large scale at a national level. So, very excited to get into that. Again, primary focus is going to be wholesaling to these dealerships that I've worked with many of them. So we already got a lot of strategic partners lined up there to buy and sell cars with, and that's very fortunate. And it's super excited to get going in that world. And the equity raise, I've never raised money before to this extent, small little fundraisers, things of that nature when I was younger, but and a few over the years. I'm really excited to get into this because this has to do with real estate, commercial real estate. So development, commercial real estate, putting a plan in place, converting a building, rehabbing a building, building a building. These are all things that I'm extremely passionate of, and I lack the experience in that world. That will be one of my core business models, is what my hope and my intention is within the Live-ish vision. I do a lot of things with Live-ish. I got my hands on a lot of things, and what I've realized is that Live-ish in and of itself is really a management company. I've got all these other companies that I'm working with within the Live-ish agency, and so eventually what I believe I will do is compartmentalize those out into their own LLCs. Many of them already are. And then Live-ish will be the management company or the holding company. I'm not really sure what that structure looks like yet. But for many of us out there who were not raised in the business world and are really trying to figure it out on our own, structure is important, and I still needs on the structuring. But what I can say at building businesses and doing this entrepreneurial journey is build the company, focus on the company, making it successful, and then build the infrastructure while you grow. How you structure it up front and things like that. Yeah, that it's important to have a little bit of knowledge, but I think you can get really bogged down. Good morning. Good morning. You can get really bogged down in the details of what kind of structure you want, whether it's a LLC, sole proprietorship, multi-partner LLC, S Corp, C Corp, all these things, and you hear about it on social media all the time. Don't get drowned down by all that stuff. It's all very important, but until you have an actual business that is making money and producing, the structure is an afterthought. Build the business, build it up, focus on that, and then you can convert the entity in whatever entity structure that you want that best suits the company and your model, as well as the growth you plan to have. So don't get bogged down in the weeds. Just start the company, make the money, get the customers, build out the platform of your business, kick ass, and then figure out how to structure it. I would recommend going right off the bat and getting an LLC. There are several things that you need to do to make sure that LLC does what it's supposed to do, which is give you limited liability, and that's like having your annual meeting, having articles of organization completed, and those little things, and then just obviously tracking your business is important. Otherwise, that LLC will mean nothing because you haven't complied with standard LLC protocol. So outside of that, the next thing that's coming up is I'll have 2 contracts from both of these engagements, and these are going to be very lengthy contracts because they encompass a lot of things. So it's important that you review the contracts anybody's having you sign. It's also important that you don't do a whole bunch of work before you have these contracts in place, because they dictate the outcomes of things and how things are going to be paid out, structured, whose responsibility is what, what you're owed, what you're not owed, what your responsibility is, and it's important to review those things before you start really diving into a business engagement, especially when you're in a partnership with somebody else or another company. And so once you've reviewed it, mark things down that are concerning to you or that you don't understand, because if you are not 100% clear on it, it needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed by an attorney, not ChatGPT, not your buddy who thinks he knows the law, but an actual contract business attorney, so that you can protect yourself. Signing these agreements will dictate the future. And also you can tell in these agreements what type of relationship someone, a person or an entity sees with you, as far as what their clear understanding is of what they have envisioned with you as a partner. And that can be really telling as well, just by the way in which they verb out their contract. So again, make sure you get those checked. I have two of those. One is a PPM. The contract is being written up by one of the business partners there, and my other contract is being written up by some automotive attorneys for both my partner and I to review. And so I will then review that. I will note down things that I'm concerned about or have questions about or unclear about, and then I will pass that contract on to a good friend of mine and an attorney, and he will review that and let me know, what I should be concerned about, what I should change, what I should be aware of, things of that nature, before we move forward in any of those endeavors. So again, contracts, make sure that they're audited by an attorney, and make sure it's not the attorney that's writing it for you and the other partner. You need to have an outside attorney for yourself to make sure that you are protected. Guys, I have had my hands in so many things over the years, and it's all starting to come together. Of all the things that I talk about, it is from genuine, literal experience in these industries, and then from my perspective, right? So I want you to take that into mind, that my perspective may not be the best perspective or the accurate perspective, but I like to be as genuine and transparent with you all so that you understand what the realities of some of these things can be, because it is very confusing, especially with social media these days. They make it seem like it's the easiest thing in the world to be a millionaire, structure companies, minimize tax exposure, increase, your protection and liabilities by all these terms that they use. And it's not that simple. It's just not that simple. Unless you're paying somebody to do it, doing it yourself requires that you do a lot of due diligence. You do a lot of reading. You do a lot of, review with other people that are more knowledgeable than you and licensed to do certain things, so that you make the right decisions and don't put yourself in a hard spot. And a lot of entrepreneurs and then just individuals in general, because they don't know, they do put themselves in tough spots. And this is why it's important to make sure you invest in knowing more about things, and never take your opinion as certain when it comes to a legal contract. Always have somebody else put a second set of eyes on that, because you are agreeing to that based on your perspective. It's always nice to have someone else's perspective, so that you have in my opinion, more clear understanding of what you're actually signing. So your perspective can be blinded in those agreements. But with all the things that I have going on, throughout the years, I started Livish in 2016. People just been like, well, what do you do? And really, I do a lot of things that have to do with development, business development, whether that's in real estate, whether that's in construction, whether that's in marketing, whether that's in sales, whether that's in operations. It's all about developing businesses. And along the way, and most importantly, this is what I love, because the business is created by individuals, I get to build up individuals on their wherewithal. I get to consult people on what directions I believe, based on my experience and my research, and that of my resource group as well, would be the best way to go for them to achieve the objective that they have. And so the tagline for Livish is "We believe in you." And I find that that is truly the core of what Livish is I see people out there, whether that's personally, professionally, spiritually, they struggle with clarity. They struggle with foundation. They struggle with the ability to categorize their needs and wants and then put them into a prioritized uh, strategy, and then to actually execute on these things in stages so that they can realize those in a certain amount of time. And so I'm able to do that. It's a brain that I have. It's something I've always been very passionate about, and I've learned over the years. I see a bottleneck or a problem, but not just the immediate bottleneck or problem. I think about all the things down the line that I can possibly comprehend in my head, while also using other resources to benchmark against, and use as a guide to catch all the things ahead of time so that we can implement things to stave off some bigger bottlenecks, et cetera, down the road, so that it's not just put this in place and forget about everything else that is going to affect. So the chain effect, and just the overall flow of operations is where I really specialize. And so I can do that in so many different industries because the fundamentals are essentially the same. And if you have an understanding of operations, sales, and marketing the way that I do, and the way that I have surrounded myself with resources that can help me to be even better in all of those areas without just using myself as the only resource to make decisions, I can deliver some pretty phenomenal fucking results in a very short period of time. And I've done that multiple times. And now what I'm learning within that is I have that skill. I've achieved those results. Now it's about making sure that I create the protections that are necessary, and also making sure that other parties are clear that I will not engage until these things are agreed upon, so that I can make sure I get paid what I'm owed. Because unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that will take everything that you give them, will show no appreciation for it, and will not pay you. And so I experienced that the hard way in the consulting world, and I'm okay with that. I learned a lot. It sucked for myself and my family, but it sucks for them even more. They lost a good resource that would have 100x any return that they got from my efforts, without them paying me. And if they would have paid me, man, we could have went to the moon. So again, that also just says that, hey, make sure you're aligning with the right people. Make sure that both parties are very clear on what their responsibilities are, what the consequences of not following the responsibilities are. And now those consequences for me are very clear in all of my agreements, and they're fair. They're beyond fair, but they will protect me and my family from here on out. And it is very clear that I get to inspect all of my pays and my contracts and communications within that organization at any time I see fit. And then I've set deadlines and penalties for not paying, and then clear consequences for not paying. So, those are all things that I had to learn the hard way. I'm so glad that I learned it, and I'm so glad that I get to share it with you guys. And I look forward to just crushing it and continuing to build this thing that is Livish, and all the tentacles that it has, and bringing it into one solid revenue generating stream, so that I can give more genuine feedback on the experiences that I'm having, the successes I'm having, and the failures I'm having. Guys, thanks for watching this morning. I appreciate you. It's a long rant today because I wasn't really sure what I want to talk about, but I am committed to doing this every day, which again I have not been the greatest at, but I want to make sure that I get on here and just give some value as much as I can every day. Stay lavish.